You should read your Bible, sirs. You'll find all types of weird shit in there.
Hey, want to have a rousing discussion about truth, honor, patriotism?
No, not you. Not you. Your organization's terrible. Quiet. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news.
How about new, you crazy Dutch bastard?
You ever been mindfucked before?
You are fake news.
Me on a mirror.
The media said what?
Let's see what these deep state characters are up to.
Now you see that evil will always triumph, because good is dumb.
Even all this time later, I still get creeped out by the ghost image of Kenneth Copeland.
I don't think that ever goes away. He doesn't stop being creepy.
No, I think he gets more creepy as every day goes by.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think Kenneth Copeland thinks about, and by the way, apologies to the listeners. We had a little flood today. I had to move my computer. I have no microphone. I'm going old school. I've got like the guest quality.
I know. Hey, you're like the guest today, Dutch. How does it feel to be the guest on your own podcast?
I'm the guest. I'm always the guest on this one. I mean, this is let's make no mistake about it. This is the Lindsay show that I happen to be on here and again.
Well, maybe Tons of Mice wants to see your toes too. We don't know that he doesn't.
That's an open question. I'm not sure I want to know the answer to that question, but yeah.
We can ask.
So well, we had a big show planned, and then nothing happened this week of any interest. So we're out of here, guys.
No. It was
nothing.
Slow news week. No news.
Yeah.
Nothing happening.
There was no indications of anything.
Nope.
I haven't noticed anything being indicated anywhere.
No. It was really boring, actually.
Yeah. I mean, Ron DeSantis has hired some new people from the Trump. Ron DeSantis's PAC hired a bunch of people from the Trump campaign. So I guess like they want to all go to jail.
They're jumping ship
in 8 years.
Did you see that DeSantis hired Scott Yenner from Idaho, the guy who said that women are too medicated, meddlesome, and quarrelsome, and they shouldn't go to college or get jobs in STEM, and that like every time a woman gets hired into those professions, it just makes men feel bad?
Yeah, when you got hired onto this show, I had those feelings. I was like, I have to share screen with someone with boobs. I mean,
I know. How demoralizing.
I'm literally sharing the show right now with someone who because she has no salient thoughts, gets by on her boobs.
It's true. I can't pee standing up. So it's pretty demoralizing, huh, Dutch? Like, can you imagine having to share a whole show with me? Like, I don't know. How do you compensate for that loss?
By buying a Ferrari.
Okay.
Yeah, because by the way, Andrew Tate's out of jail. Do we care?
Is that the mood we're setting for this show? Is that the tone we're going to start with?
I don't know. Like, do people? Is this something people care? Because, like, I think you remember, I didn't know who he was until he started getting in trouble. I'd never heard of Andrew Tate.
Oh, you didn't know about Andrew Tate before
No.
then? Wow.
I had no idea who he was.
Wow.
What a knives.
That's lucky for you.
I had no idea who Andrew Tate was until like maybe 3 months ago when Ravana was talking about him, and I was like, "Who the fuck is Andrew Tate? Like, why
How
did
you not know him? I swear
because
to God, we talked
because I wasn't
about
a victim
Andrew
of his
Tate.
misogyny. Well, yeah, we talked about him, but I don't remember if it was 3 months or 5 or whatever, but like I had no idea who he was until like super late into the game. Like people knew who he was until like butter knives. Like
How did you guys know?
I knew before he got arrested in Romania, but I didn't know too long before that. I knew that there was a person called Andrew Tate and that he was an influencer of some sort, and I didn't care.
Yeah.
And then I heard like Ravana and a couple other people that were friends with, talking about him. And I'm like, they're like, he's this huge misogynist, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. And then I kind of got roped in, and I'm like, I felt better before I knew who he was.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm
I think that's
very
most
angry.
people.
Yeah, I wish I didn't know.
Most people were happier before they knew who Andrew Tate was. I know. We need to make Romanian prisons Tate again. Like
for the uninitiated,
great Tate.
For the uninitiated, Lindsay, who is Andrew Tate?
Okay, so he is like this rich guy. He comes from money. He was a fighter. I don't know if he just did MMA or boxing or whatever, and he kind of got to start there. And then he was dating women and would sex traffic them. And to varying degrees, people are saying he was keeping them hostage, that, he would have them owe him money. He would take them to other countries so that they couldn't leave. And so that was kind of his thing. But not only would he do that, like he would post about it on social media, like that made him a badass. So he'd be like, look, I have all my girlfriends who are cam girls or do sex work. And like, I trick them into it, and started kind of this culture of like, you should trick women into doing what you want too. And it became really popular, with a certain crowd. And
wonder who that could be.
Yeah. And so another thing he would do is like openly try to humiliate women on camera or on screen by interviewing them. And so his followers started doing that. So that started a lot of the like asking questions of women on campuses and stuff, like what's your body count, stuff like that. Like he was kind of the impetus behind
what's your body? Is that how many people you slept with?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like something that I would have said in like 9th grade.
Yeah, no. So that became like a whole like question now that people on social media go around and ask girls at bars or whatever. But yeah, so he had a lot of money. Yeah. Butter knives, he had money before, and he did make money doing fights. But then, yes, he was sex trafficking cam girls and made quite a bit of money that way. And then was telling other men, like, that's what you should do to make money also. So that's Andrew Tate.
He sounds like a 9th grader.
Yeah. Well, and then he tried to pick a fight with Greta Thunberg, and she just absolutely smoked his ass, which is one of my favorite Twitter moments of all time. And he made a comeback video where he looked awful. Like he absolutely failed. It was horrible. And then he got arrested like 2 days later. It was a great story.
Anybody who seems to pick a fight with Greta Thunberg seems to not fare particularly well. But she's like, they love to like lampoon her. Like that's something I don't get. Like if just example. So I don't remember specifically what the situation was, but there was something about 3 years ago. You're just gonna have to trust. You might even remember this.
I'm just gonna have to trust me, bro.
Yeah, just trust me, bro. But like it's, but you might even remember this. Even though, despite the fact that you're just a woman, but like there was something like 3 years ago that was totally like benign, and it was just some story about that something had to do with Barron Trump, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like anything even really negative about Barron Trump, but like some people would be like, well, he's going to grow up to be just like his dad, or I hope that this dad's not teaching his son to be like a womanizer or whatever it was, right? And people would be like, or say something like totally like not even harmful, like I don't give a shit about Barron Trump or something like that. And right wingers just lost their cumulative skulls. Like, how dare you insult a child? No wonder you guys are trafficking them through Comet Ping Pong. And, you guys, no wonder you're pro choice. Like you leftists, and no wonder you're inundating them with drag queen reading hour. You guys hate kids. Like, leave the children alone. And then you see the Greta Thunberg stuff, and you're like, do they listen to their own words?
No, they want rules for other people, but the rules don't apply to them. Because if they come after children, it's warranted. If anybody else comes after children, it's not okay. That's just like, I got in a huge fight with this far right person in Idaho, and he had talked about, he knows that I have a trans kid, and so he was like, I'm gonna call CPS, you should have your kids taken away from you. And I was like, hey, you can fight me all day long, don't make this about my kids. And then like 2 weeks ago, he posted that he had COVID, and then like almost immediately posted a picture out in public and was like, look, I'm having a great time in public. And so I retweeted it, and I was like, dude, didn't you just say you had COVID? Like, you're a plague on this state. And he went ape shit. Like, he was like, leave my kids out of this. You're the worst. Like, it's always the left coming for the kids. Like, it was, I was like, I just retweeted your tweet that you posted. Like, and anyway, he absolutely went apeshit over it. So no, it's totally a double standard.
Yeah, and they did it about it wasn't just Greta Thunberg, I forget which one it, but like it was remember
Hey Flow State and Tons of Mice.
Hey, remember Pac-Man? Or was it not Pac-Man? From the Parkland, the kid from Parkland. The Parkland shooting?
Yeah.
Like those kids, it wasn't just one. It was David Hogg. And then at the time,
there was like all those kids.
There was like 5 of them, right? And one of them was Kyle Kashuv, who ended up like working with Ben Shapiro, and like so not all those kids were on the left. One of them was on the right, and had a different viewpoint than his friends. But like they were just vicious towards these kids. Yeah. Including even Kyle Kashuv, until they found out that he was more far right. Yeah, and then he's on Ben Shapiro.
Flow State. Greta is 20 now, but there was a countdown clock for her to turn 18, and people made horrible comments and memes about her. They do this to children all the time. Like, she's 20 now, but they didn't just choose to pick on her after she was 20.
They were going after her when she was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Dino, what's up, brother?
Hey, Dino.
How are you, brother? I hope everything's going good. Our former co-host of Breaking Barriers, Dino. I know they're going to be launching that show somewhere soon. He better let me know when him and can do that, so that we can help support you guys. But we love you, Dino. We miss you.
I know. Hey, Tons of Mice. Dutch was feeling really sad, like this is not enough his show. So I told him, you probably want to see his toes too. So if you could just throw some love for Dutch's toes. He was feeling real sad about how nobody wants to see his toes.
I think that slippers are okay on Twitch.
We're about to find out, aren't we?
Yeah, we will. So
miss you too, Dino.
But that's it, though. I mean, nothing else happened today. Does anyone in the chat know of anything important that happened? I can't think of anything.
Idaho went straight to hell. Absolutely, such a bad week.
What did Idaho do?
Oh, what didn't Idaho do, Dutch? So they passed the bill to stop healthcare for trans kids. So no healthcare for trans kids. They passed the bill that will ban books effectively. So a bunch of libraries will probably have to shut down if a child checks out a book that the parents don't like. they can sue the library for $2,500 plus damages for each instance. They also passed a bill that if a minor crosses state lines to get an abortion, that is considered abortion trafficking. And whoever helps them will be charged with a felony and between 2 and 5 years in prison. Plus, all their family members can sue the doctor in the other state for damages. So it's really testing the bounds of interstate commerce and like thought crimes, because you can't get an abortion in Idaho, but you can drive to the Idaho border and then drive into another state and do something. And so they're really testing, like, can we arrest you for your intent to do something in another state that is legal in that state that is not legal in Idaho? They passed that law. So yeah, we're thought crimes. We're in thought crimes Gilead now. So that's fun.
Oh God.
Woo.
Yeah, but I think that's it. I mean, I saw a story.
Yeah, no, nothing else.
I saw a story about Trump mocking Ron DeSantis, and then so for some reason the word "indicated" is trending. Can we? Why is? Can you check real quick and see why the word "indicated" is trending?
I think only like the dumbest of people use the word "indicated." Other people, I think, use another word.
I heard "Kafaveve" is indicated.
Kofifi?
Yeah, whatever it was. Kafavvp. Yeah.
Actually, my 8-year-old does think that is a word that is another name for coffee, because my husband and I say it so often. So he will. How
do you pronounce it? Actually, is it Kafafifi?
Oh, we say Kofifi.
That sounds like an old 80s toy, the Monchichi. Monchichi,
well,
oh, so soft and cuddly.
I was not alive for that, so.
Prove it.
I can't.
Okay,
I guess I don't have my birth certificate. We don't know where I was born.
But yeah, so actually we've been lying. For the first time in history, a grand jury has indicted a former president.
On 34 charges. 34!
Right, and like now, so a lot of people have been questioning that, and that's one thing that I think it makes us take a second to like break down here, because the way that I understand it is like each of the payments that Cohen made is like a separate charge, the way that I understand this, right? So like if you're guilty on one of them, you're guilty on most of them. And then there's the other woman as well, which there's a couple of
because I would say there were multiple people. So it wasn't all just Stormy.
Karen McDougal. Yeah, if you remember Karen McDougal. But and then the crazy part is like, you know, I'm actually more so like this is I know this might sound really weird, but like I don't give a shit about Stormy Daniels. I don't care about. I realize the fact that the campaign funds were used for, you know, all that type of stuff. But like, and that's a crime, and he should be punished for that crime. But the real one to me is Georgia, right? Like it's that to me, that's the one that is like, that's something that actually was an attempt to defraud the United States of America. The Stormy Daniels stuff, like I don't care who you sleep with. I didn't care who Bill Clinton slept with.
Well, I don't think it's the sleeping with her that anybody cares about.
No, it's a lot of stuff, but it's all the adjacent stuff that went around with that, right? Because people will say on the right, they're like, oh, you guys are so worried about a porn star, but you have Bill Clinton. First of all, I'm not the one who hated premarital sex until 5 years ago. You know, that was my friends in the evangelical church who suddenly became okay with that.
Actually, in Idaho, they just passed a law that in our curriculum for sex ed, it has to be abstinence only, but not only that, it has to be that you should not have sex before marriage. So actually in Idaho, it still is not okay to have sex before marriage. So anyway, I live in hell. Yeah. It's fine. We're doing okay.
We are. Yeah. Well, Corwin, I see your comment there. And just to a couple of you who are new here, like this, I do a Twitch stream mostly every day, where I engage with the chat a lot more. This particular show is more of a podcast format, so we don't get upset if we don't read every comment.
We try to like jump in.
But we do get more involved here than we do on Wednesdays. People get pissed on Wednesdays. They'll be like, "You never." I'm like, "Dude, we have a segmented, like, written out podcast."
Yeah,
here.
written podcast.
But you must read my comment about kittens.
Well, you saw that one about Anna and I when we were talking about that last shooting, and people were like mad. They're like, "I'm leaving," and I'm like, "We are having a whole moment here. Like, calm down, calm down."
Yeah, they were talking, and of course there was another shooting this week. But
Yeah.
I think that, and just Corwin says, Trump ran the world during COVID and said the light kills COVID. He said that. He didn't really say
God.
inject bleach, but he implied that it might be, it wouldn't be foolish. If these charges keep him from running again, I'm fine. I don't think that will, because you can literally run for president from a jail cell, right? Like, that can happen.
There's nothing that, because this has never happened before, there's nothing legally stopping him. So we're kind of in uncharted territory about what this means.
And this is why this is why you had the second impeachment attempt, right? Like, the first impeachment attempt was a legitimate impeachment attempt.
Yeah. Because
of something that happened that they like, and let's not forget, people are like, "Oh, the left was so quick to impeach Trump." Your brain doesn't work, because Nancy Pelosi, like, she sat on that for months. Like, it was a
long time.
Yeah, like, she was like, "Oh, I'm very hesitant." She's still talking about we need to pray for our Republican friends. And then, like, she, like, walked everything across the halls of Congress with, like, all this ceremony, and we're all like, "Dude, what took you however many weeks it was?" I try to block out 2015 until 2022 because I had COVID to all of this.
You're gonna let long COVID let you forget.
Can you imagine, like, just real quick, take a step back.
Okay.
Let's go back to, like, early 2015, before the elevator ride.
Okay.
Before COVID. Like, the world that we live in now is unrecognizable to that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was still Mormon.
I was still a Republican.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's, I guess these things happen to, and they change people's perspectives on stuff. But, it was like, I cared about, like, the Cubs.
I thought generally, like,
I
was still Mormon, but I was kind of moving more left. And so I thought, like, I was like, post-Obama, we're moving forward. The world is getting better. Like, I was like, the world's just going to be bright and better, because I was stupid and naive. And yeah, now I look at the world and I'm like, how did we get here? Like, I practically live in Gilead. How did we get here?
Yeah, you've got a lunatic who was elected president, multiple lunatics elected in Congress.
A whole ass pandemic.
A pandemic where, let's be honest, there was stupid shit done by both fucking sides. Like, Fauci never should have gone on stage with Jerome Allen, or was it his name Allen? The Attorney General was Jerome something.
Yeah, I don't think it was Allen. It might have been Allen.
But
no, their
Surgeon
messaging
General
was not good.
No.
Constance.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so there was. It wasn't just all right wing shit. Like, they never should have gone on there and said something stupid like masks don't work. Like, I could, if I were to spit on my camera right now and then hold this napkin up and do the same thing, guess what? Less spit gets on the camera. That's the whole idea.
Well, and go ahead.
No, I'm good.
I was going to say, and I will be the first to say that even the CDC, like, the CDC was more concerned about hospitals as businesses.
Yeah,
so even their policies for hospitals, like, they fucked over nurses and doctors. Like, that whole, like, put your mask in a paper bag and reuse it for 7 days. Like, a magic paper bag is supposed to get rid of the COVID. And, like, just they didn't have protocols for codes. Like, I was working in the ER when COVID first started, and they were changing their masking policies like 3 times a shift, and they were having us sign papers where it was like, if when we took care of COVID patients at the end of our shift, we had to sign a paper that was like, if I get COVID, it must have been because I fucked up my PPE and I'm a moron and the hospital won't be responsible. Like, they did not care about healthcare workers, and the CDC like paved the way for that with their messaging. So I will be the first to say there was a lot of ways it was handled that was nonsense. You're muted, Dutch.
Yeah, and thank you. That's the thing. Like, I can go back and say, hey, you know what? I don't like the way that this was handled by Fauci, which the idea that Fauci's on the left is just asinine.
Yeah.
You know, he's no fan of the right, but like he's not on the left. Like, and like that's an absurd statement to say. Oh, Anthony Fauci's like a leftist.
Oh yeah,
Anthony
like,
Fauci
he's he's a communist.
Yeah, he's an overt capitalist. And the CDC, much like the Fed, is a highly political organization, right?
Yes.
The
FDA,
the FDA, yeah, they all favor whoever, like they all favor whoever is in office. You know, they have their own politics, and you know, the Fed maybe is slightly different from those two organizations, but still, you know, they're all highly political, and we've understood this for a very long time. Fauci has sided with Bush, he's sided with Obama, he's sided with Clinton, you know, and like we care about what's right and what's wrong. I have nothing invested in Anthony Fauci, Andrew Tate, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, AOC, nothing. I care about ideas. You know, and like but what happens a lot on the right is like a really good example of this is, well, actually I'll give you 2 examples. There are a group of people who, like, you could, if you make an argument about like something with guns, and they'll say, well, you know, you said that an AR-15 is an assault rifle, and that particular term was actually made up by this, and it doesn't actually mean that, so therefore I don't have to listen to any of your argument. And then they'll go back and they'll say the same thing with Fauci. They'll be like, oh, well, you know, Fauci said masks didn't work, so then therefore I'll believe that, but also that means I don't have to believe anything else that he said. But then when you turn around and you're like, you know, well, this may have happened, and this fact A happened, and fact B happened, and fact A turns out not so great, but not a fact, and then disproven. But fact B, C, D, E, and F, those all still remain because those things are objectively true. Mm-hmm. No. I can't get on board with that. Like they do with Russia. They're like, oh, you know, we know now that like the Steele dossier was like probably not the most concrete of evidence. There was some anecdotal stuff in there, and like, but that doesn't mean that everything after the Steele dossier never happened. And they're like, oh, no, Steele phony dossier. So therefore anything that happened after the phony dossier, it wasn't a phony dossier. It was just, a lot of it was unverifiable. Right. Yeah. And they'll be like, oh, so everything after that is a hoax. And I'm like, who thinks that way?
The right does. I've got bad news for you, Dutch. Yeah, no. And like, to get back to your point. Yeah. And so we're just like, after Trump, after like where we are now is like, if you had told me where we were now in 2015, I would have thought it was a joke. I'd be like, no, that's like a dystopian. That's ridiculous. Like they won't overturn Roe v. Wade. They aren't going to like be shutting down libraries. Did you see Missouri has refused to pass any money for their libraries, effectively shutting them down? That they would be.
I didn't see they were shutting them down. I just saw that they were stopping funding them.
Yeah, so there's not going to be. Yeah, well, so librarians have come out, like library districts have come out and been like, if there's no money, there's no libraries. Like they have budget through like July of this year, and that's it.
So informate, and that's like here's another key difference. This is a really good point. So like you and I can have a civil conversation about things like going to college, right? Like I am of the opinion that we push college down people's throats too much, and that like you don't have to go to college. You should be able to go to trade school. You should have opportunities that aren't for everybody. Shouldn't go to college, but not everybody wants to go to college, right? But because you want to or don't want to go to college doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to support your family, right? There's a cost benefit analysis that you have to do when it comes to college, because it costs $50,000. It's not $2,000 like it was when my dad graduated.
Like $50,000 a year.
In many cases. I mean, mine wasn't that much, but mine was like $60,000 for a 4-year degree. I'm still paying it. It's still a lot of money, but like the right will be like, oh no, college is just, they don't want anyone to go to college either, but they don't want anyone to go to college because they don't want them to have access to information and critical thinking. And that's why they're shutting down these libraries.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh, that's like, and it's under the guise of protecting children. That's what they say. Like, we don't want kids to have access to material they shouldn't have access to. But like,
you mean like the Bible?
No, Dutch, because that one's important. They were like, no, that one is important because Jesus said so.
Right. The book where they kill women and children, like in every other verse. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, among other things. But so in Idaho, they're effectively going to be shutting down libraries. And so there was another bill in front of the legislature that what it would do is it would potentially, like, they were wanting a filter on phones for legislators and could potentially hold manufacturers of phones liable if kids access like Pornhub. And the legislators, which arguably, where are kids finding material that's inappropriate? It's not at the library. It's on their phone. It's on the phone they have in their hands. And the legislators refused to pass it because they're like, well, could this in any way be construed to ever hold gun manufacturers responsible for anything that they do? And so the Republicans refused to vote for it. And they're like, yeah, we don't want kids to get access to that, but actually we love gun manufacturers more. So fuck them kids.
Yeah. And just for anybody who's involved, and I appreciate the fact that you brought that up, because we did have another mass shooting this week.
Yeah.
The person who did this is a monster.
Yes. Full stop.
But this person allegedly, and I haven't looked at this case for a couple of days because I was doing some other stuff, but like allegedly this person was a trans individual. I don't know.
I think it's been confirmed they were trans.
So and that's fine. But of course that's what they're like, oh, see, the left agenda blowing up again. I'm like, wait a minute. So you're saying that now their argument is that because the left takes the position that trans people exist and should not get beat up in public, that the entire trans conversation from the left, not only the community, but anyone who advocates for treating trans people like human beings, is now responsible. And I'm like,
well, it's even worse than that. It's even worse than that, Dutch, because look at what happened in Tennessee, where they went to the Capitol. They were protesting bills and saying that they were protesting multiple things at once, some of them being trans lives matter, and one of them being we need to get guns out of, like, kids shouldn't be dying in schools. Like, this shouldn't keep happening. And they were protesting that, and the conservatives made edited videos. They were calling it an insurrection. They were saying that they were storming the Capitol. When you look at the videos, they went and they protested. They protested at the Capitol. And they protested. The main gist of the protest was kids should not be dying in schools. So can we do something about that? This isn't about mental health. This isn't about trans people. This is like 99% of shooters are still white men. This is about kids dying in schools. And a lot of them were high school students and college students. Are like, this has been our whole lives. We don't want anybody else to have to go through this. And the right spun it as, look at these transurrectionists. Look at these people they're just angry and rabid and they're going for lawmakers and it's an insurrection, because they can't deal with the fact that they were actually there to try to protect kids. And that has been the Republican talking point for a year now, is that they want to protect kids. They don't actually want to protect kids. They want to control people.
Yeah, they want to protect their narrative that they care.
Yeah.
They don't care about children. If they cared about children, you would never hear personal responsibility when it comes to parents and kids' hospital bills.
No.
You know, like at full stop, end of conversation. You know, you would at least support universal health care for kids under 18.
Or
but you
don't
like
pay for lunch at school. North Dakota was like, I don't know, the poor kid should stop choosing to be hungry.
Yeah, they should choose their parents more wisely.
Yeah.
You know,
they should try being less poor if they want to have lunch.
They seriously think that providing lunch for kids and breakfast for kids at school incents the parents to not want to feed their kids at all?
Oh, no, okay. I can go back to conservative Lindsay speak, because this was like a pet issue for my parents. Because we were pouring on school lunch. Yeah. No, are you ready? It's so much stupider than you even think. So this was like Glenn Beck's whole push in like 2004 to 2010.
You don't say.
Oh yeah, he talked about this all the time. So the big issue is, he would say, if schools feed your kids more than 2 meals a day, because there are some schools that offer like breakfast and lunch, and some offer like snacks. And if you stay for clubs, sometimes they have dinner options, or like options you can take home and make at home, like if you were in an after school program and you're poor. And so he was like, well, kids are at school for like approximately 8 hours a day, which is about a third of the day. Sometimes more, sometimes it's more like 10 hours if they have sports or when the bus gets there, whatever. And he's like, and now the schools are paying or are feeding your kids 2 meals a day plus a snack sometimes. And so he got some like stupid Republican lawyer to come on and be like, schools are going to be suing for custody of your kids.
Right.
And they're going to say that they have a right in parenting your kids because they're feeding them and caring for them a certain amount of time. And people in the conservative circles were freaking out, homeschooling their kids, not letting their kids have free lunch. Like my parents had talked about, like I was in high school, so I was like, I'm going to do whatever I want. But they're like, don't eat breakfast at school because maybe the school will like take us. I'm like, no, they fucking won't. Like my teachers don't want us. Like they don't want to take, what are they going to do? Have us sleep in the gym? Like, what is this? And so it's just this scare tactic that somehow the school is going to try to tell your kids what to do or be a parent, or I don't know, stupid stuff like that.
It's a classic slippery slope fallacy.
Yeah. And just fear mongering that they're coming for the parents and the good Christian kids. So
yeah, and that's the same argument that they give, because once in a while you'll meet a Republican who will say, well, yeah, I do support universal health care for kids, but that's just the start to them, getting it for everyone. And I can't live in a world where lazy 30-year-olds get free health care. They need to just die. And it's like, and it's they don't say that they should just die part, but that's basically what the end result is going to be.
Well, they would rather have nothing, no healthcare, no retirement, no access to government services, if it means that in their mind, a lazy person in a hypothetical situation that they made up also won't have healthcare. Like,
and
that's what we're doing.
And can't get out of debt. These are the same people who petition for. There's a couple energy companies that do it the right way, like Nicor in Chicago does it the right way. But like your energy companies, they only report your credit if you go delinquent. So like the 10 years that you pay your electric bill on time, they say it's nothing.
Yeah.
But then if you're late by 30 days, now it's reported as a late payment. These are the same people. It's the same idea. It's like, well, how about we change that? Well, then you'll just have a bunch of lazy people using the utility companies for free credit. But it's not free.
No, it's not free. You're paying. And credit wasn't a thing 40 years ago. Like, it's a thing we just made up to keep poor people poor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it all comes back to the same argument. They're I don't know if they're doing it on purpose. I think there's a spectrum. I think some people are on purpose protecting wealth, and others are just ignorantly protecting wealth, right? I would imagine there's a spectrum, and I don't know where the peaks are on that.
Yeah.
But like they continue to protect the establishment while calling themselves anti-establishment now, because a lot of Republicans are in this populist movement now, and they're like, I'm anti-establishment, I'm anti, but only when it comes to like big tech and maybe pharma. They're super pro-established when it comes to the NRA and the NSSF.
100%. Yeah. No, they love those groups. They love
Right,
that.
and the pro-Israel PACs and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's their favorite. Corwin, you brought up here. I'm going to bring up the comment. You said, "What do you think about inheritance then? Because lazy 30-year-olds are inheriting the work of their parents every day." I think you're bringing up.
Nepotism.
I think you're bringing up two ideas and kind of conflating them as the same thing. I am in favor of a massive inheritance tax, capped at a certain point where, like, if you're going to get your parents $50,000, then I literally don't care. Pay your minimum taxes on it and be done.
Yeah.
But yeah, for billionaires, multimillionaires, then yes, you pay an inheritance tax, a huge inheritance tax.
I'm a fan. Just real quick, I'm a fan of that. I don't think any of that should be taxed until it hits 100,000, and then after that, it should go up to close to 100%. Like by the time it gets to the $1 million mark, like it should be like 90 something percent, and that needs to go directly into social safety nets, specifically into entitlement.
I agree.
To fund those entitlements, because
like
we're
Social Security,
the Social Security Trust Fund is specifically what we need to fund. Because people remember, Social Security is not going broke. The Social Security Trust Fund is what is going broke, not Social Security. So don't believe the hype on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
I also no. That was a good point. But then also, I think it's not that 30-year-olds are lazy. It's that you literally can't, like where I live, you can't buy a house here, even with a job with a college degree. Like they're telling nurses and respiratory therapists, people with college degrees, like, I'm sorry, in this area, you shouldn't expect to be able to buy a house. Like people I work with, professionals, are having to get roommates just to be able to continue to live close enough to commute to work. They aren't even living like near where they work, just where it still makes sense to commute. So there's some lazy people living off their parents, and there's some people where you just literally can't afford to live. Like it's just gotten so ridiculous. There aren't houses, there isn't property, or like wages have not kept up with cost of living. And so I think conflating inheritance with 30-year-olds living at their parents' house, not the same thing. Not the same thing.
Yeah, we are not a recast. Let's just prove that. No, this is a podcast recording. But you make a very, very good point, as always. Welcome in, Arathar. I think you're probably new, because I don't recognize the name, but welcome in. And I wanted to circle this back because like there was a point that I was thinking of earlier, when it comes to the shooting that took place earlier this week, and in was it Knoxville or Nashville? Nashville. And
Nashville.
At a private school. Mm-hmm. And again, the individual who did this is a fucking monster, full stop, just like all of them are. I'm sure there was mental health issues involved, just like I'm sure there always are. That's an indictment on our system, and you don't get to criticize the lack of mental health care that we have in this country if you are also not fully advocating for universal health care.
Yeah.
Because that is a piece of that.
We brought this up last time. Reagan dismantled the mental health care system for all intents and purposes. Mm-hmm. And look at where we are. Like, look at how it's affected homelessness, how it's affected ER costs for hospitals and cities. Look at how it's affecting all kinds of things. And so Republicans want to say it's a mental health issue, but not actually do anything to address that, just to deflect until the next one.
They're not wrong. It is a mental health issue to a point. It is a combination, sort of a juxtaposition of two lines of thought. But you have a mental health issue and you also have a gun culture issue.
Yes.
And the gun culture issue is, motivated by, or fueled, I should say, by the fact that we have 1.7 guns per person in this country.
Yeah.
Like, they have mental health issues everywhere. It's not like America is the only country in the world with mental health issues. It's not like America is the only country in the world with violent video games. You go to Japan, they have mental health issues and violent video games. No mass shootings, or like one every 10 years.
And let's also, when we talk about mental health, what are the groups that are most beat down in our country? Indigenous and Black women, particularly queer and Indigenous Black women, and queer Black women. And they have some of the hardest time and face some of the biggest social struggles. They are just absolutely beaten down in our society. And guess what they don't do? They don't shoot up schools. They don't shoot up clubs or malls or grocery stores. Again and again and again, it's white men. And sometimes some men of color. And so, yes, I think to actually go into a place and purposefully shoot people, something's not right. Like, something's not right. But the groups who have the least access to care and support in our society are not the people doing this. And so, yes, it's a mental health thing. And those who are the most targeted in our society are not the people who are doing that.
Right. And on top of that, as I've mentioned before, and I'll unfortunately have to mention again, because honestly, this shooting is like, the Trump story is the biggest story of the week, and we'll get to that in a second. But this is the biggest story of our lifetimes since Columbine, and that's really when gun culture started. Like, you can literally tie the beginning of the mass shootings to the origins of gun culture. Like, before the late 80s, early 90s, there was really no such. It would have been, of course, they didn't have Facebook then, but like, it would have been unheard of to have like someone's family photo be them with like, and I'm just as critical of, like, if it's a Black kid with a picture of a gun and a bunch of 20s in his hand, or if it's a white family smiling with their blonde hair in front of the Christmas tree with their AR-15s. Like, I think both of those are gun culture, and both of those are equally problematic, because they both play into the same issue. And right after gun culture started, you started to see, I'm not really sure if it started right before or after as a response to Columbine, but like, the origins were in the same time frame, and you can't ignore that, right? So, but you have the NSSF, who is the official lobbyist arm, and nobody even knows who the fuck the NSSF is.
Yeah.
You and I know, because we've talked about this, but like, nobody has the slightest clue of who the NSSF is. It's the National Sports Shooters Federation, or Sportsman and Shooter Federation, or whatever it stands for. But it's the NSSF if you Google it. And like, they are already today, after this shooting, using any fear of that is generated by this shooting to use that fear to make more money for the gun manufacturers, because their job is to lobby Congress and state governments so that gun manufacturers like Springfield, Ruger, etc., can make more money. Their goal is profit for the gun industry. The gun industry is off a 2-year high. Like, 2020, 2021, and 2022 are the three. They sold more guns each one of those years. They broke the record of the year before. And then in 2023, they're going to have the 4th best year ever, but they're forecasting a decline in sales. Still will be the 4th most gun sales ever this year. But guess what, Lindsay, last you checked, stockholders don't like declines in sales. They want increases in sales. So what does the NSSF do? They'll say, well, the shooting took place, so there's going to be a bunch of fucking leftists who are going to try to ban your guns. So here's a policy that's going through in a state that's got a 1% chance of passing. We'll advertise this as being 100% chance of passing, So now is the time to go and go buy guns now. Go today and buy as many guns as possible.
Yeah.
And then nothing happens, but the gun sales continue to rise.
Yeah. Well, and somebody brought up, I can't remember. I think it was Aratha.
National
Somebody.
Shooting Sports Foundation. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brought up that, is it gun culture? I think it goes deeper than just gun culture, because I grew up in a conservative gun culture family. I grew up hunting with my dad. And it was different when I was really little. And then there was a shift, like right around the time of Columbine. And that tape has been released with the NRA, where they were trying to figure out, how do we respond? Because they actually had a huge conference coming up, and they were trying to decide, how do we frame this for our members? And because they even had talked about, should we just say, like, no, maybe we do need some bans? And they nixed that, because of course they did. And there began to be this coordinated push that guns just aren't just like a hobby. They aren't just something you use to go hunting. Like, guns are part of your identity as a conservative, and not just as a conservative, but like as a conservative Christian patriot. Guns are part of your identity. And so any criticism of guns or gun culture, or talking about any kind of restrictions on gun ownership at all, is an attack on you as a conservative Christian patriot. And it's attacking the Constitution. It's attacking your freedoms. It's attacking your religion. It's attacking you in your hero complex, believing that you're going to be the good guy with the gun. And so I don't even think it's just a culture thing. It has become an identity. That is why people are taking pictures with guns for their Christmas cards. People are taking pictures with guns for their pregnancy announcements. Like, it has become part of their identity as part of this whole conservative Christian identity in this country. And that's why we aren't going to get gun reform, because you could more easily get them to stop being Christians than to get rid of guns, I think.
We're actually doing a better job at that.
Yeah, they will not do that.
Yeah.
They will stop being Christian before they get rid of guns. Like, that is so embedded in who they are right now.
Christianity is down. Radical Christianity is up, but religion in general is down. Islam, everything is, and like this can be shown by church membership. Now, I'm not saying you have to go to a church to be Christian. I understand the dynamics there, but but you can draw some assumptions from what we see by church membership declining, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like but the problem that we have in this country, which is very unique, is we have a very, very strong Constitution. And when I say strong, I'm not talking about it's good. I'm talking about it is relatively bulletproof. Not only did it set up a Senate, whose essential job is to slow down legislation, right? But then, in order to get a constitutional amendment passed, it is remarkably difficult, because you only have two ways that you can do it. Either Congress and the Senate, the House and the Senate can pass a legislation with a supermajority and then have it ratified by the states, or the states can call a constitutional convention, which requires 60% of the states to sign in on it, and then have 67% of the states ratify it. It is remarkably difficult to do. That's why it's only been done 24 times.
Well, and oh yeah, and it's difficult. And there's this ahistorical narrative that has really popped up that the Constitution is perfect, that how it is God ordained exactly those exact words. And the amendments we've added on are like, fine, because they got rid of slavery and now women can vote. Maybe that's okay. But that, like, Jesus himself wrote all of those words, and those are all the words.
That's a surprise to Jesus, I think. I think Jesus is surprised.
I think he's like, I don't remember, actually. Was I there? But so that has become part of also this patriotic Christian narrative, that the Constitution we have now was perfect. It's the most perfect document. and that we shouldn't change it because Jesus himself ordained it. And any attempts to change it is like an attack on the country and an attack on their God. And so not only is it difficult to alter our Constitution, but this far right culture, or even just this right wing culture, frowns upon the idea that you would change anything because it's also sacrosanct at this point.
Oh, they worship the Constitution in a weird way.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like people walk around with copies of the Constitution in their pocket. And Arathar,
yes.
like I literally was about to combat your point, but you combated your own point. So I was like, yeah, there's a big difference between someone who's willing to kill someone with an axe and with, like, just from a psychological perspective, you know, it takes a different type of person to pull a trigger than it does to go after people with a hatchet, right? Like, it's much more personal.
Yeah, you can remove yourself from,
yeah, I mean,
just from like
shoot
hunting.
someone from a half mile away.
Yeah, if I had to go kill a deer with a hatchet, it's never happening. You remove yourself when you have a gun. You just do. It's less personal.
Right, and even, like, I don't know how you feel, but like when you, like, even when it comes to like fishing, like if I'm using I've never hunted, but like if you substitute the fishing pole for the gun, right? Like, so casting out the line, basically the fishing pole is taking the place of the gun, right? So like that part is easy. Hitting the fish in the head and cutting it open once you get it is a completely different thing to me. Like, I'm okay getting the fish from a mile away, but then when it comes time to hit the fish, I'm like, I don't want to kill the fish. Like, throw the fish back in the water, you know?
Yes, I was gonna say, field dressing, not my favorite. That was not the
Okay, Lindsay, you shot the deer. Now I need you to cut its spleen. Okay, reach inside. Okay, grab the poison out or whatever it is. I know there's some dynamic to venison where you've got to keep it from the meat from getting poisoned by some gland or something like that.
Yeah. You have to do it really carefully. Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise your whole family will die the next day. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely a gun problem, and it can be proven. If I were able to snap my fingers and all the guns go away in this country, your shootings go to zero, right? Like, yes, is that an extreme? Yes,
the data has shown that restrictions on gun ownership work. Mm-hmm. They work in stopping mass shootings.
Yeah, they just don't. It's not foolproof, right? And like, so you need to do more.
Not perfect.
But you have to be able to have cooperation. And when you have the combination of the right wing, and I'm not exonerating our right wing Democrat Party here. Believe me, our right wing Democratic Party is included in this statement. But when you have,
after their whole TikTok shit, they can just absolutely all just go away.
What TikTok shit?
Wait, what?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have TikTok, Lindsay. I only watch you.
No. The TikTok hearings? Have you not watched our legislators look like absolute fucking morons?
Is this the one where Lauren Boebert was talking about, no, this isn't the one where she was talking about public urination.
No, it's where they were talking to Xiao Chu. And they had no idea how the internet works. Or
yes, I did. I did see some clips of that. Yes, I did see some clips of that.
Yeah,
you're right.
They don't know how Wi-Fi works, or phones, or data, or any kind of social media. They absolutely, Democrats and Republicans, they're like, this is the most bipartisan group ever, the most bipartisan committee, and then they all sounded like morons, absolute morons. I was like, oh my God, the Democrats are so stupid.
I don't recognize the name Bob D. Ray, but hey, welcome in. Thanks for following the show. We don't get notifications here on this fucking stupid ass StreamYard.
No, it doesn't tell me when people are here.
Like, that tells us when people follow, like I get with my Streamlabs. But anyway, so all right, the big tuna in the room.
Oh wait, just a sec. Corwin, you posted that we call the Constitution a living document. I was taught growing up that is a Marxist slogan to undermine our country and take over.
Originalism. That was Scalia. So Scalia came up with originalism. I mean, he didn't invent it, but like he popularized it in the late, I think it was the late 80s. And, you know, like the idea that you have to apply the law in the context that they thought about it back in those days. I can give you that on some things, like maybe like how you treat people, but when it comes to things that and it comes to anything that's technology related,
they actually, a lot of them owned people, so I would actually not.
No, but that's actually the entire crux of how you disprove the argument. Because if you were to say, well, you know, we should treat people like this is what the slave owners believed. They said we should treat people like this. Then amending the Constitution to no longer treat people like that would be unconstitutional, right? So, but on a simpler point, what I'm saying is, like, if it comes to, like, you know, emotional stuff, or just like, you know, freedoms from like infringement on rights and stuff like that, you might be able to make some arguments, but then like you can't. It's even hard to do it then because like they couldn't foresee what particular rights we were going to be talking about now, right?
Yeah.
So and like I highly doubt that the founding fathers, or I'm sorry, the framers of the Constitution, because the founders and the framers are different people, thought that corporations were people.
Yeah. The only time that Carmen Electra and I will ever be in the same category for anything. So thank you, Constance.
That and they were both married to Dennis Rodman.
What?
That you're married to Dennis Rodman, right?
I sure am not.
Oh, okay.
No. Thanks.
I was gonna ask you how Kim Jong-un is doing, because I know you go over there and party with him and
no,
Dennis.
it's Xi Jinping. That's what all the Republicans are like. You're on that communist app working for Xi Jinping. So,
well, that just goes to show you.
Chu.
That just goes to show you how stupid Republicans are, because they're still making the argument that China is an actual communist country.
And Russia.
That's
you
a
seen
fundamental
them talking about Russia
being communist?
Yes.
No, because that's laughable. Like, Russia doesn't even try to be communist.
No, but they still were talking about it like 2 weeks ago. They were commentating about like, well, see, Russia's communist and China's communist. And I'm like, oh my God, we're still having this conversation.
Stupid people think Venezuela is a socialist country. Like I'm just going to tell you right now, and with all due respect to my friends in the chat, if you think Venezuela is a socialist country, you're stupid, because you believed something that you were told without researching it. They have more social programs than we do. That doesn't make them socialist. The government does not control the means of production there.
No.
They have,
well, and socialism, the government doesn't even. It's supposed to be the workers control the means of production.
Right.
So that would be communism, and the workers don't own the means of production. Like that, at the very most basic level, is what it's supposed
is socialism, to be. Right? They think that it means, well, there's two factors at play here. One is they've changed the definition of socialism on the right from worker. It depends on if you're talking about Marxist definition of socialism and the Oxford definition of socialism. Not exactly the same thing, but similar. Under true socialism is you, me, Lindsay, everybody in the chat, and all the rest of America. Under a true socialism, we own the means of production, and government is only there to distribute law. We can call a ballot referendum at any point in time and place that we want for anything that we please to do so. That has never existed.
No.
Now,
and
but
even
the right wing,
like even unions are like the right is constantly like unions are socialism. Unions are like a smidgen of a step. But they're like a smidgen of a step in that direction, like trying to have that conversation. Right. And like Republicans just absolutely lose their minds. Yeah, no, socialism in this country, exactly. It is just a curse word. It's anything they don't like.
It's a pejorative. But here's the funny thing. You would not need unions if you were in a socialist country.
Yeah, no.
Unions are necessary because of capitalism.
Yeah.
And yes, there are issues with many unions.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
those issues with those unions are issues that are inherent to a capitalist system.
Yeah, because we work within a capitalist system.
Yes, they're under the same system. Like, so it's like when you have a bad person in a union, same thing like with this shooting, Lindsay. Oh, a trans person shot a school. All trans people are guilty. They'll say, well, this union leader was arrested for corruption. all unions are bad. But
Yeah.
then you have like the CEO of say Enron arrested for corruption. They don't say just Enron was bad. Not all corporations are bad. That was just a bad apple. Oh yeah, it's the policeman argument. The bad apple in the police department. By the way, when it comes to police departments, real quick, just tiny little thumbtack there. When the police officer comes and outs a bad apple before they do something, then I'll believe that they want to weed out the bad apples. But anyway.
No, they just kill the cops in training exercises who try to do that.
Or they kick them out of the department altogether. Right?
Or they don't hire them.
Like, I'm so sick and tired of the bad apple conversation. I've never seen a police officer say, well, maybe a couple, and they always get fired. I've never seen a police officer say, who kept his job, this person is a bad apple before they do something. It's always after.
No, well, and that's not even the whole thing. The whole phrase is a bad apple spoils the bunch. So if they want to say it's just a couple of bad apples, they're getting rid of them. So the whole bunch is spoiled. That's the phrase.
Right, and then kind of to wrap the point is the right has changed the definition of socialism, and they've made America believe that the definition of socialism is government control of the means of production. Yeah. Right? The abolition of private property, all capital, all assets, all the means of production are owned by, and most people who say the means talk about the means of production don't even understand what the means of production means, by the way.
No, God, no.
Like if you ask them to define what are the means of production, they'll be like, well, it's the means of production. Like,
yeah, but, they're like, I don't know, my uncle's dentist office? Like, no, Jesus.
For your record, it's the thing.
Socialism doesn't mean we come and shutter your uncle's dental office. My God.
No, in fact, your uncle's dental office is part of a de facto co-op, and him and all of his employees now have health care, so that your cousin's dental office doesn't have to be responsible for taking care of those basic necessities.
Yeah.
And he can pay them more.
Just do universal health care, so it's not on employers. So if you want to switch employment, you don't lose your health care. Your ability to access medications is not tied to your deference to your employer.
An oligarchy cannot be socialism. That's correct. Mm-hmm. We conflate authoritarianism with socialism in this country.
Well,
which is stupid.
There's not even a basic understanding of governmental systems within our society. Like, we do a terrible job of teaching that because there's such a focus on patriotism within the United States. So we don't actually examine other governmental and economic systems in any kind of an objective way.
No, we say they're too small.
Yeah, we don't talk about oligarchies. We don't talk about what authoritarianism can look like in a variety of different countries or situations. And so, like, it's beyond frustrating because I will talk to people on the far right and I'll talk about Christian nationalism and the rise of fascism. And they were like, no, the Nazis were socialists. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't. If I have to have that like disagreement one more time, I might just explode. I can't.
We are in an authoritarian oligarchy, basically, because it's just that the authoritarian who runs this country is green and made of paper. It's profit. Mm-hmm. Profit is, I know that's not an entity, but it certainly acts like one. And, it's the sole motivator, yes. And it's like, yeah, I don't have a problem with people, like zero people that I have talked to on the left. And by the way, I may refer to ourselves as the far left, but like by global standards, Lindsay and I are like moderates.
Yeah. Oh, if I went to like Europe, they'd be like, I don't know, you're kind of in the middle.
Yeah. You might want to think about joining the Boris Johnson's party. But like I forgot what my point was going to be, but anyway.
You're right, past shelf date. You can have a la carte socialism, and my God, I would love that for us.
Just a couple social programs would be fine with me. I mean,
yeah. Oh my God.
it's not like we're going to get rid of capitalism in like 4 days. You know, like
No,
we can
the
slowly
bar is
move
on the
towards
ground
it.
for me. The bar, like capitalism has broken me. Like I will take socialist crumbs at this point. Like any little
Yeah.
scraps, I'm here for it.
And like if you think about it, like we can't even get my right wing friends will tell me up, down, left, right, and sideways that Joe Biden and the Democratic Party are radical leftists. We can't even get the minimum wage raised. What the
Yeah.
are you talking about?
Yeah. No, because Pat Shelty, I disagree. I don't like in so many ways we don't have like we do ish from things like the New Deal and like libraries and road
Parks.
districts and stuff. Like, yeah, parks, like public school, like very, very limited, incredibly limited in their scope. And we're constantly just fighting to keep them from being destroyed.
Mhm.
Like at this point, we're just like libraries are getting shut down, schools are being defunded. Like they're fighting so hard. Like Idaho passed Medicaid expansion, and the legislature just defunded it completely. So like even the little scraps of a la carte socialism that we kind of have we're constantly having to fight just to barely maintain them.
Yeah. Arathar, where are you at? Are you in Canada? Because you must be in Canada. Or you're not in the United States, or you're talking about your state. Because California is raising their minimum wage this year. I think it's going to 15 in 2023, but it was like
Whoa.
even California was behind. You know, the 50. Okay, yeah, I was going to say you must not be in America, but like even California is barely keeping up with the minimums that we're talking about, and they're supposedly this socialist state,
Yeah.
that is run by a guy who owns like 11 vineyards in Gavin Newsom, and whose
Yes, in
smile
Idaho they
costs
call
more than
it
my car.
California. Yeah.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom's smile costs more than my car. But he's a communist.
California.
It's just absurd. I don't agree with everything California does. They banned flavored vape juice. That was stupid. But they also did that in Alabama, I think it was. So there's a couple other states that don't have it at all. But
Yeah.
but anyway, okay. To the big
I mean,
story.
at least they're sometimes doing stuff. No, Idaho's never going to raise the minimum wage. We're all just going to like be so poor we can't possibly cross the border.
Well, and
we're going to have babies in the woods because all the doctors are leaving.
That's the thing that people don't think about, though. Like minimum wage raises at state levels are overwhelmingly popular, even in red states, and they generally pass with like 65-75% support. I think I forget if it was Arkansas or Alabama who raised their minimum wage in the last year or so to 12 or 13 or whatever it was, from remarkably low, and it passed overwhelmingly. But for some reason, when we do it on the federal level, everybody loses their mind.
Yeah. Well, that's government overreach, Dutch. We won't have them make us into New World Order slaves with their federal minimum wage.
My complaint about Cali is that in 1906, 80% of San Fran was destroyed in an earthquake. The entire state is on a fault line and next to an ocean, yet we build it up year over year. That's a fair criticism. I'm not okay. I get it. Like, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it goes to show the arrogance of the human race, right? Like, but you could say the same about people who build their house in flood zones across, like by the Mississippi River, or the river systems in Louisiana. Like, the levee won't break again. That sort of thing. Or in Galveston, Texas, where they have a weekly hurricane, but it's so beautiful that I have to live there. That's human arrogance, right? Like, it's even just living in Chicago, like, it's cold.
Yeah.
We might have snowstorms kill more people than earthquakes do, and in America at least.
In my college intro freshman geology class, my professor said the final is like whether you pass or fail is determined by where you buy a house. He was like, I can tell whether you took this seriously or not based on where you buy a house someday.
I'm buying mine in Louise or Erner. I love the fact that we have smart people
right
in
by the
chat
levee.
today. Nice conversations going on in there. But okay, we've only got like 30 minutes left on the show, so we're gonna get to the big Kahuna burger now. This from fake news CNN. Very fake. It's very fake news. Former President Donald Trump's indictment by a New York grand jury has thrust the nation into uncharted political, legal, and historical waters. Isn't it like weird, like how words like uncharted and unprecedented have lost their meaning in the last 5 or 6 years?
I have literally only existed in unprecedented times, so that doesn't mean anything.
We used to use the word unprecedented in unprecedented ways. Now it's like another unprecedented thing. But the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been investigating Trump in connection with his alleged role in a hush money payment scheme and cover-up involving adult film star Stormy Daniels that dates into the 2016 presidential election. Through the indictment, which has been filed under seal, though the indictment, which has been filed under seal, has yet to be unveiled, Trump and his allies have already torn into Bragg and the grand jury's decision, blasting it as political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. So I'm going to read a couple of bullet points here, and then I'm going to let Lindsay talk on this because I'm sure she's got absolutely nothing to say.
Nothing. No words.
What's the indictment for? Trump faces more than 30 counts related to business fraud in the indictment, which again remains under seal. He's expected to be arraigned in Manhattan criminal court next Tuesday. I wonder if he's going to smile for the mugshot or not. That is a side story.
That's a great question.
I'm very interested in that side story.
Do we want to take bets in the chat whether he smiles or not?
Yeah, I think so. Why, if you think Trump smiles for the mugshot, and if you think he, and then type in Tucker if you think he gives a Tucker Carlson face.
I think he's just going to be really serious. Like, I think he's going to try to look like angry, but he's going to do that Trump thing where he's like
his Twitter profile.
Yeah, where he's like trying to look tough, but he just was like that.
That's
the face of thing.
He'll have a lot of makeup on. Third, why do I care for a smiling carrot? It is probably the most interesting. I am personally of the opinion. I talked about this with Lindsay with Anna on Wednesday. And Anna says I'm crazy, so I'm probably crazy. I think they're going to have a devil of a time finding a fucking jury for this.
Can you imagine being on the jury?
Can you imagine the jury selection process?
No.
Have you ever voted? Yes. For whom? Both parties. So you can't make a decision. I eliminate, right? Which charges are possibly at play here? A target in the probe has been the payment made to Daniels and the Trump Organization's reimbursement to lawyer Michael Cohen. According to court filings, when Cohen faced federal criminal charges, Trump Organization executives authorized payments to him for totaling $420,000 to cover his original $130,000 payment and tax liabilities and reward him with a bonus. Hush money payments are not illegal. Ahead of the indictment, prosecutors were weighing whether or not to charge Trump with falsifying business records of the Trump Organization for how it reflected the reimbursement of the payment to Cohen, who said he advanced the money to Daniels. Falsifying business records is a misdemeanor in New York. Prosecutors were also weighing whether to charge Trump with falsifying business records in the first degree for falsifying a record with the intent to commit another crime. This is going to be the key to the entire thing.
Yeah.
Or to aid or conceal another crime, in which this case could be a violation of campaign finance laws. That is a Class E felony and carries a sentence minimum of a year up to 4 years. To prove the case, prosecutors would need to show Trump intended to commit a crime. Then you also have the people of the state of New York versus Donald J. Trump. Atop the order of the case that's the name of the case that I just said. Judge Juan Murchian wrote in the order that the disclosure would be in the public interest and an appropriate exercise of this court's discretion. So after Trump reports and we find out who wins the mugshot contest, just one real quick last bullet point I'll throw at this. This is not going to end for a long time. We're looking at probably the end of the year before we know anything with this, which will be right in the middle of election, like the beginning of real primary season.
Yeah.
The real primary season, so Lindsay, no one cares what I have to say. Go.
Oh my God, that is not true. Tons of mice wants to see your feet. So
I have my usefulness.
My first thought is I cannot wait. I really hope he does get convicted for some of these things, because then it will be in the history books, and I cannot wait for that little blurb where it's and then Stormy Daniels, an adult movie star, was paid off by the Trump. It would be so perfect. That's the best story ever. I love that story. I would love that. Anyway, I just want that to be part of our history. Second of all, they're already talking, Trump people are already freaking out. And his support has waned significantly. And we talked a couple weeks ago about how I think Fox News really wants him to go away because he's hurting their brand, and they were found to be lying. There's a lot of reasons, but this is kind of they want him to go away. They don't.
And we know this because of the Dominion case, which is a fascinating side story.
Yes.
To this.
And so I think a lot of people want there to be convictions, just because that's a quick way to get Trump out of the spotlight. And I've seen people talking about you're going to make him a martyr. You're going to make this. It's not like they're going to give him life. It's going to end up being I don't know. He's a rich guy.
90 days.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's going to be 3 months and then 3 months of house arrest. And so this whole, he's going to be a martyr. He's not going to be gone long enough for us to miss him.
House arrest at Mar-a-Lago. Oh my God.
Yeah, seriously. But it will be just enough of a push that I think DeSantis needs to become the front runner. And so that concerns me, because I think DeSantis is scarier than Trump.
Let's I want to pause you there for a second. I almost would rather Trump be found not guilty, or probably more. Trump's not going to be found not guilty.
No, he'll be convicted of something.
But the case may be thrown out, right? It's possible that the judge could throw the case out. And it's also possible that he could, be found guilty and then appeal, possibly up to the Supreme Court. It would be tough, but Anna says it's possible, so I'll take her word for it. But DeSantis is, and some other people who will be running on the right, are way more dangerous than Trump, because let me tell you something right now, guys. There's not one thing that Trump believes in or advocates for that Ron DeSantis doesn't. The only difference between DeSantis and Trump is that DeSantis is wicked smart and tactful, and he's a politician, and Trump is a doofus.
Yeah. And Trump wanted to be king because he's a narcissist. But DeSantis knows how to be an authoritarian. He's demonstrated that in Florida. He knows how to be an authoritarian. And this is why I think DeSantis is very, very scary. And he will have national support. I live in Idaho. It's hell. Support for Trump here has diminished. The far right by far doesn't care about Trump because he's no longer their golden goose. The candidates he backed didn't win. They want to win above anything else and be able to tell other people how to live their lives. I know Republicans here who are reasonable they want school boards to be funded. Like, it's very reasonable for Idaho. You can take that for whatever it is.
Talk about low bars.
Keep in mind, I live in hell. Like, I live in freaking Gilead right now. But they're very reasonable. They are thrilled about DeSantis. There is widespread support for DeSantis here, for Republicans of all categories. So, like, they want to help his campaign. They are donating to his probable campaign. Like, from where I stand amongst all of this red, they are very excited about DeSantis. And so when he announces, that's going to be huge. And I guarantee he is going to have way more support than people think. And he's fucking dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see what's happening. Like, I mean, there's no books left in the entire state.
Yeah.
He
tried to take over Disney World.
Yeah, which is super weird for a overt capitalist to go after a company that for it's like the whole thing with Disney is like they call them woke, like, woke. They're woke because they have women in Marvel movies, and they did
they had 2 women kiss in a movie.
Yeah, they've had 4 movies that kind of hint that gay people and maybe trans people might exist out of 102 years of film. But those 4 movies are like, that's way. Buzz Lightyear, there had a woman and a woman in the movie that stood next to each other and gave each other very, very loving look, and I'm triggered. Real quick, we'll get to a couple of comments. I'll split a few of these with Lindsay because you guys have had some great comments. Lindsay, if you would.
Yeah, I don't think DeSantis can win nationally, and Trump being found guilty will make him more popular with his base than ever. Like, I just see, like, so we have different groups in Idaho. It's just that's not what I'm seeing. Like, with Republicans, I have to interact with them all the goddamn time. And groups like the Idaho Freedom Foundation, Idaho Freedom Action, all of these groups that are really far right, like Christian nationalist territory, absolutely authoritarian, dominionists, they don't like Trump right now. There's not a lot of ground support for Trump. Like, even at CPAC, they were posting pictures. They're like, look at Trump speak. Look at how small the audience is. Like, there is a shift away. And even with the prosecution, he's not going to be the like, this isn't 2 years ago. 2 years ago, yes, I agree with you. 2 years ago, this would be a whole different story. Right now, I think because of how badly they did at the midterms and how Trump's candidates underperformed, I think it's DeSantis. He is going to have the support.
Here's one more for you.
Thinking DeSantis is scarier than Trump is exactly what happened last time. Liberal media ran nonstop low energy Joe and little Marco coverage, or little low energy Jeb.
Little Marco.
But I mean, that's the problem though, is I think last time the problem with Trump was everyone just thought he was a joke. Like, it was like, what is he going to say next? Oh my God, nobody really supports him. This is crazy. But look at him up on that stage acting like a doofus. And he was good for the media because everyone wanted to see what the hell Trump was doing and what stupid thing he said and how he was raging on Twitter. And that, I think that's the difference. That's not what DeSantis is doing. DeSantis is very clearly dog whistling to the people he wants to have vote for him. I will try to take over Disney. I am removing books. I am, like, did you see that he took the, like, don't say gay, like, that law they passed where you can't talk about, like, sex ed or relationships or anything from grades kindergarten to 3rd grade. And everyone was like, see, why would you do that for little kids? Why would, like, groomers? And he has expanded that now from K through 12. And so last I heard, he still needs to sign it, but it had passed through the legislature. And that's the point. He is signaling what he will do. He is coalition building with the worst people around the country because he's going to make a run. He is signaling to them what he's going to do. This is very different than Trump being a sideshow attraction that the media talked about because, wow, he's wild and wacky. Does he seriously think he can win? He's just such an outsider. What DeSantis is doing is very strategic and is horrifying because of what he is signaling. I think it's two very different things. What do you think, Dutch?
First of all, I just want to point out a genius comment in the chat. Two of them, actually. Aranthar, foreign perspective for Trump's election. America seemed to be fucked up with the establishment, and he was the exact opposite. That's not completely false. But OpenGL, let's be real, CNN created Trump in 2016. I would argue more MSNBC, but you are exactly correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like MSN, and here's why I say MSNBC, and I'll get to Lindsay's question in a sec, but MSNBC gave Trump, and remember, you had 17 GOP candidates and 3 on the left, Trump or Hillary, Bernie, and what's his face. Trump got 80 something, like 83 or 87 or whatever it was % of the overall coverage that was taking place on MSNBC in between like December of 2015 and November of 2017, that full calendar year. It was astonishing. That absolutely, it turned Trump into a story, and it turned out people watched that story so much that a lot of people were like, well, maybe this is what we need. And then you had this other thing happen with the evangelical Cyrus 2.0, unwilling vessel ushering in, Christian theocracy, unbeknownst to himself. He doesn't realize it, but God's using him. This whole thing, which really, I don't think you and I have actually really dove into that whole thing before. We might have to break that down.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've talked about that tons.
That is a whole show. It is one of the most fascinating psychological just stories of sociological stories I have ever witnessed in my life. But nonetheless, the question you had asked me, I've forgotten what it was. What was the question? Oh, you asked me what I thought about DeSantis. Okay, being calculated. So Ron DeSantis, as I said before, this is very simple. Ron DeSantis is 1,000 times worse than Trump because he's not Trump, but he is in here. He's Trump, but here he's not. And I'm pointing to my mouth when I say here he's not. And I'm pointing to my head for those on audio when I say here he is. And he's getting a lot of stuff done in Florida that is great if you're a right winger, but if you're not, it's horrific. And the real proof in the pudding is that you have kind of Kemp, but definitely Greg Abbott, definitely Sarah Huckabee Sanders in these other states, these far right governors, Kristi Noem, etc.
Yeah.
And none of them have been able to push across quite as much as DeSantis has.
Yeah.
Right. And DeSantis has been able to do it with national fever. And despite the fact that Trump supporters don't like DeSantis a lot of times, there are some that do. But remember, every Trump supporter, every DeSantis supporter also likes Trump. That is not true of Trump supporters. They don't necessarily like DeSantis, right?
No.
So, but the DeSantis was born of MAGA. And I thought it was so hilarious what Trump was saying the other day is DeSantis came to me with tears in his eyes. And that whole interview with Sean Hannity was hilarious, right? Sean Hannity said to Trump, he goes, you wouldn't actually read those documents, right? I've known you for 30 years. You'd never read those documents. And Trump's like, oh, but I could have read, I definitely have the right to read them. He's like, yeah, but you didn't read them, did you? He goes, oh, I could if I wanted to. So he never said no, right? So then Hannity's it was almost like I got vibes of Alex Jones with Kanye. I like Hitler, so you're saying you like the uniform? No, I love Hitler.
Oh my
And,
God, I
you
know that.
like Trump was like, no, Hannity, I totally read those fucking documents. And then he's like, it was just so cringy. And then he's like, Ron DeSantis, he came to me, he was crying, and if it weren't for me, he'd either be working at a pizza parlor or as a lawyer. Like, wait, what?
Those are two similar things.
There's nothing in the middle. Like 8 years of schooling. But to land the plane, DeSantis, I would take Trump in a million years before I would take DeSantis, because we saw, like Lindsay so eloquently pointed out, that in the 2020 election, MAGA got smoked. Mostly the election interference part. Like, people were not open to that. They didn't want to talk about it. They knew that it was bullshit. But that was what a lot of people ran on, right? Carrie Lake probably was the better candidate as far as like popularity wise. She fit the mold better than the person who she won, who I can't remember her name, but she lost because of the election interference part. There's only like 3 examples of people who won. One was what's his face in Ohio in the Senate, and then there was a couple of cases in Congress, and they know that. But Trump's not going to go away from that. DeSantis will end all of that immediately, and so DeSantis won in Florida by how many points, Lindsay? Like,
God,
20?
I don't know.
18,
It was a
20
lot. It was
points?
a lot. It was a large
Yeah.
margin.
And
I don't know
Kemp
what it
won
is.
by about that much in Georgia over Stacey Abrams. Greg Abbott won by about that much. But then you look at the people who are in the Trump camp who ran on like the election interference and all of the culture war
the
issues.
fraud, the culture, QAnon.
Yeah. They either lost or won by a tiniest amount.
But the majority of them just got smoked.
Yes,
Like, the
and a lot of them were
majority.
favored to win. They lost in like Republican +4 districts, and they were losing by like like Lauren Boebert won by like 100 votes.
It was 563. I was just reading it.
Yeah,
the other day.
And that's nuts. And it's because of that. And DeSantis will Republicans will win nationally in 2024 because they've done a better job at messaging. And the left is fucking horrible at marketing.
Okay,
and
but
it's sickening.
I would argue no, because I even think in 2022 Republicans did a better job of messaging. I would argue they did. I think they had a more cohesive message for their voters, and they really brought out the big guns in the races where it counted. And I feel like the Dems I was embarrassed when it was election time. I was like, we are going to get just absolutely destroyed. And there were some groups that had good messaging. Some states did really good messaging, and some candidates did really good messaging. But overall, I was like, oh my God, we are
Gretchen Whitmer.
Yeah. I would say
Awesome.
there were people who did incredible jobs, and there were people where I was like, oh my God, like we are going to get destroyed. But we didn't, because, and this is, I think, the factor that we need to start talking about, because it's at play more than it has been in other elections, which is Gen Z showed up because of Roe versus Wade.
Right.
And the Republicans are going to have to answer for the things that they're doing that are not popular in their states. They aren't even popular in red states. Like, Republicans are getting libraries shut down. That is not popular in red states. Their ESA and voucher bills are not popular in red states. The anti-trans bills are still not popular in red states. All of these things that they're doing aren't popular. The continued abortion bans in Kansas, the voters said, we don't want an abortion ban, and Kansas legislators are trying to do it anyway. And so I think the thing that Republicans didn't learn in 2022 is when you take your culture war all the way where you want it to be, yes, you have that little minority of people who now ride or die, they're yours. But they were going to be yours anyway. But this people in the middle that we always talk about that voters need to get, they like libraries and they like schools and they know somebody who's trans and their daughter needed to get an abortion. And so that is a huge factor in why Republicans just absolutely, the red wave got just shut down. And Gen Z gives no fucks. They don't care. They're never going to own a house. The world is burning. Our country, in many parts of the country, is slipping into Christo-fascism. They don't care. What are they going to lose? And they are overwhelmingly voting for progressive candidates. And not just Democrats, but progressive candidates.
Right.
And so Republicans still don't have a strategy to counter that. And they bet hard on culture wars. And with Roe versus Wade, that bit them in the ass. Like,
yeah, women and Gen Z and African Americans won this election for the Democrats, and kept us close in places where we shouldn't have been close.
Yeah, exactly. And even stuff like just on a more local level, a far-right group tried to get the libraries all shut down in my town. And so the county commissioners had to like hold a meeting to see if it would be put on the ballot. And it's something like 1,000 people, a lot of whom I know are Republican and very right-wing, showed up to stop that. And they're very frustrated with what's happening. And so people are not responding well to these culture wars. I think Republicans are still banking on that people will flock to them and be like, yeah, we hate trans people. We hate women. We hate schools and libraries. And that's not reality. That's not where a lot of these people are. And so I think what we're going to see is instead of learning from 2022, they're doubling down and going further. And that is going to continue to bite them in the ass. Not in every race, obviously. And I'm very concerned about the presidency. But I think in a lot of races that count, this is going to be a huge problem.
Yeah. And people overvalue the power of the presidency, right? Like there is power in the presidency, but the Senate is really what matters, right? Like though I am not convinced that if we have a Democratic Senate and a Republican president in the next election, which is entirely possible if you look at the demographics of what's coming up, that the Democrats wouldn't be like, oh yeah, we'll definitely put DeSantis's or Trump's nominee on the bench. Like, yeah, no, he seems reasonable enough to me. But like McConnell, he won't even take a vote if he was like, there's 0% chance.
No, what Democrats are going to do is they're going to be like, well, here's the thing. We need to model civility since we've lost that from the political scene. So let's really hear what they have to say. Mm-hmm. Let's see what DeSantis wants to do. And so, no, they're not going to do anything, but it slightly stops the Republicans from just like absolutely demolishing everything in this country.
Yeah. And to I think it was Corwin who made a comment, and I believe you believe this. The point is that the two political parties keep each other in check. That's the way that it should be. But unfortunately, we have a ratchet effect in this country. And if you don't know what that is, I would urge you to look into what the ratchet effect is. It is a real phenomenon in the United States. I did a video on it about a year ago on this channel. You can search go to our YouTube channel, Dig on America YouTube channel, and just type in ratchet effect. I did like a 1-hour conversation on it and brought my receipts. And I'm not the only person who's done this. Second Thought's done it. Mr. Beats has done it. So it's like this is it's not a proven theory, but it's like it's overwhelmingly likely that this is like you can show that this is happening within like 99.9% probability. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing as like people always say, well, like capitalism will foster ingenuity. So if we have like in my city, we have 2 hospitals, they pay the exact same amount. They have basically the same policies and they've refused to give raises because they don't have to. Like this year, they both like agreed. Nobody's getting raises. And so this whole idea that the political parties keep each other in check is the same thing. They aren't the same, but they in no way are keeping each other in check. And they aren't like the things that the Republicans want to do. How does that check the Democrats at all? Like They're trying to get rid of libraries and schools and trans people. Like, how is that supposed to be a check on Democrats who are like, could we get health care for children? Maybe.
But yeah. So quick prediction before we go to ASMR. Does Trump get found guilty? I say it never goes to trial. Unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but
I say it goes to trial and he does get found guilty. But it's going to be like I said, he's going to get, 30 days in jail and 3 months house arrest in Mar-a-Lago. So
I hope you're right.
That's what I think will happen.
Yep, I hope you're right. And I appreciate all of, like, I'm trying to keep an eye on as we talk here what's going on in the chat, and I really think there's some good conversation there. So Lindsay's going to do a special segment that she does at the end of every show. And while she does that, I am going. Oh, you brought tools today again.
Yeah,
I love it.
I got stuff.
Oh, and don't forget 2 real quick things. On our Easter show, which is that next week?
Yes.
Good Friday. So we're having another exorcism, correct?
Okay, so I don't know if we're gonna be at my in-laws and they are like Mormon. So I think if I do that, I can't do that. So
okay, we'll have to do it another day. All right.
Another time, it cannot happen.
No exorcisms at my aunt's house.
No. They won't let us have coffee in their house. So I'm gonna guess the exorcism will not work.
She has a very strict rule on exorcisms. But and then tomorrow is April Fool's Day. So I'm going to put in the chat, if you're not following me, twitch.tv/DustJason. Okay. This is my Twitch channel. If you're an idiot, give me a follow. No, I tomorrow I'm going to do a April Fool's Twitch stream as Earl Tucker. I am Earl Tucker, and I'm a Confederate trucker, and I will be destroying the left tomorrow for April Fool's. I'm going to make people think that my Twitch channel is right wing, and it's going to be loads of fun. We're going to have lots of misogyny, lots of racism, and it's going to be a barrel of laughs, and I might even shoot my gun on stream. So join us tomorrow as I execute the left, figuratively and literally. You know what I'm saying? So join us there. Lindsay will go to ASMR, and while she does that, I will find someone to raid out to. So stick with us for the raid.
Yeah, where are you guys gonna go raid? I don't know if that one's very good.
It's not bad.
Is it not bad? Okay, let me see. Maybe I can't hear. I don't have the right microphone, so I can't even hear what it sounds like, guys. This is like an experiment. I never know if it's good or not. Okay, we're gonna try scissors. I'm gonna accidentally probably cut this and then feel really stupid. But maybe it would be good ASMR. I almost just did. Okay, that's it. I'll see you guys next week.
All right, Lindsay, I will see you later.
See you guys. See you, Dutch.
All right, I'll talk to you later, sis. All right, we're going to raid up out of here. We are going to head over to Nabil's stream. Actually, you know what? Let's go over to Echoplex. We haven't gone to Echoplex in a couple of days or a couple weeks. So we'll head over to Echoplex Media, say hi to Dave while you are there. They've given us a raid a couple of times. So we will see you again a week. Come join us on Wednesday for the Wednesday show with me and attorney Anna and Big Haas. And then join us again on Friday. And then check out my Twitch channel. I put the link in there if you're interested. Thanks, everybody. YouTube, see you later, too.